Over the last couple of weeks, I've spent more time away from my dual screen phone, the Surface Duo, than I probably have in a really long time. It's because of a couple of things. One, I was reviewing the Pixel 6a, which I did really like. So I spent some time, a few days away from my Duo because of that. A couple of days like completely Duo free. Then I moved over to my Z Fold for a little while because the Z Fold 4 should be announced here in just a day or so, depending on when I decide to post this. I wanted to kind of get reacclimated with that experience as well. And I came away from this experience with, I hope, something somewhat interesting to say, or at least a couple of things that I think might be interesting to say, because the experience was rather stark for me. Like I said, my daily driver is a Surface Duo 2, something that is perplexing to some people, I guess. And that has been the case for quite some time. That's been the case since Duo 2 really came out, minus a couple of days here or there. Before that, I used an original Surface Duo for about 6 months before moving to the Fold. So what is it like for someone like me who is as entrenched in the dual screen phone lifestyle? What is it like for that person to move to a normal phone and then to a large tablet screen? Well, I'll tell you this. While I was using the Pixel 6a, which again, I've said several times, I did enjoy, I did like using that phone, there was just this thing that just continually happened. When I was just doing normal stuff, just scrolling through Twitter or Reddit or whatever, everything was fine. However, anytime I needed to triage something, I needed to do something productive, I felt immediately restricted because I can only do one thing at once. And I'm fully aware that you can split screen apps on a screen like that. You can have one up top and one down below. One, I did not do that at all. And two, there's a reason why I didn't do it, because it's not very good. You have two tiny little apps, two apps so small that you may as well not have either one of them open. You're better off to just have one full screen, do the thing, swipe up and hold, or do the swipe at the bottom to go to the last app and just jump back and forth. So you're constantly doing this thing. You're constantly including the last app for the new app. I'll give you a really good example. So I had posted a video where the description needed to have a particular bunch of text in it, right? It was something involving the Z Fold 4 or Samsung's Unpacked event coming out August 10th. And I wanted to have, in the description of that, I wanted to have some text that said, hey, click on this link, reserve your device now, and you'll get $200 back in whatever they call it, credit, store credit. So I wanted to have that in the description, because when you click that link, you reserve your thing, you get your store credit, and then potentially when you actually buy the thing, when it comes out, when you can actually put your money down, I get a kickback for that. I get a little bit of money for that. So if you're going to buy that device, I want my link to be there. So if you're going to buy it, you can click my link, and that's going to help support the channel. I had posted the video, and because I can't concentrate on anything for more than 3 or 4 seconds at a time, I had, like always, forgotten to put that in the description. So I was like, okay, I need to go grab that text. And luckily, I have that text saved. I use OneNote to kind of keep a lot of these things organized. So I need to go grab that text. So on the Pixel 6a, this is what that looks like. I'm going to go into YouTube Studio. I'm going to go into that video, click on edit, get to the description part. Then I'm going to go home. Then I'm going to go to OneNote, and then I'm going to go to that thing. I'm going to grab that text. I'm going to long press it, hit copy, then go home. Then I'm going to go back to YouTube Studio, and then I'm going to paste it in at the top and then save it. Is that horrible? No, it's fine. It's a totally fine way for a phone to work. However, on my Surface Duo 2, YouTube Studio's here, OneNote's here. I get to the description, I copy the text, and I just drag it over and hit save, and I'm done. It is a simpler process because both of those apps just can be opened side by side at the same time. And I found myself relatively often running into situations where I was irritated that I needed to close one app to go to another, to interact with the second app that maybe was contingent upon the first app in some way, in a manner like I just discussed. And it was irritating to me. Now, could I have readjusted to a normal phone, to a standard slab style phone? Yeah, absolutely. If I have to do it. If something happens and the Duo 3 comes out and it's just god-awful and Panos Panay says, all right, we're giving up, and I got to go back to a normal slab phone. I wouldn't. I'd go buy a folding phone, like a tablet, like a Fold. But whatever. I had to go back to a normal phone. I could do it. I wouldn't be happy for a while, but eventually I would readjust. Another big thing, though, that is less talked about is the fact that, like, on my Duo, a lot of the time, I'll have, like, a YouTube video playing over here and then something else going here. Because the screen is really wide, the video is pretty big over here. I don't have to really rotate it in any way to have, like, a pretty good sized video on a normal size phone. The video is very, very small. It's significantly smaller. So the width of the screen, not just in YouTube consumption, but in many other ways, I just found the width of the screen. I like my widescreen. This is a point of preference. A lot of this is a point of preference. Let's be honest. This is definitely a point of preference, but I prefer the wider screen. I just do. Even when it's in phone mode, I like the wider screen. And maybe I'm crazy, but I actually find this to be easier for me to hold on to use than the other screen. It might just be because I'm used to it. I don't know. But for some reason, I had a hard time at times just adjusting to the more narrow screen. So I was very happy to go back to my Duo 2. But then when I was done with that, I went to the Fold for a little while. And that was also an interesting experience because there's a couple things that I immediately noticed. One, readjusting back to this cover display was not something that was coming easily to me. I was not enjoying this cover display. Now, I know for a fact that I will adjust to it because I've done it in the past and I got to actually use the cover display a decent amount to do quick things. But in that first little bit of time, I was just like blown away again. Like, wow, look at how skinny this thing is. I can't reach anywhere near the top of that screen. It's not great. But then, of course, you got your tablet screen on the inside, which is still very, very good. It is still such a beautiful screen. It is so smooth at 120 hertz. Man, it's a great display, and it's really, really good. But once again, like on the Pixel, even with my little multitasking tray here, which I usually keep pinned, I unpinned it for another video. There it is. Even with that little tray there, I found myself mostly using, one app at a time for the most part. Even though, yes, I can relatively easily split screen a second app. I did it occasionally, right? And then in instances that it makes sense, like the scenario I outlined earlier where I'm going to get text and put in, I could have totally done that on here and it would have been better than it was on the Pixel. But it is just the simple fact that it is an extra step. And it's not an extra step on Duo. So on Duo, I find myself doing 2 apps at a time all the time, constantly. Here, I find myself doing it only when I absolutely have to. And that as well winds up feeling weirdly restrictive to me. I actually wind up missing my second screen way quicker than I thought I would. I thought, okay, on the Pixel, I get it. It's a small screen. But when I go to this, I'm not going to miss it that much. But I actually really did. I missed it pretty quickly. I feel like I've shown this a few times already, but we'll kind of show it again here just to kind of drill this home. We've got our Z Fold 2 here, which I still really love this device. It's still a really good device, okay? But let's say I'm in the Google Play Store and I'm doing something, and I need to open up another app. Well, if it's one of these apps I have pinned, like let's say it's Twitter, it's easy enough to just long press that and drag it over, and for some reason that did not work. Let's do it again, and there it's going to work, and now I'm split screening, although these 2 apps are preposterously skinny, and I would say are not a great experience, so let's rotate it to make it a little bit more palatable to me. But let's say that in fact it was an app that isn't on my little taskbar here. I would actually have to go into my app list, and let's say find that app. Let's just go find Twitter again so that we're going to be consistent. And then I could drag it over and split screen it. So you can see here how many steps it is and just what the general process is to do this. Well, let's go to Surface Duo 2 and let's just do the same thing here. So I'm on my home screen. I've got the Play Store open on one screen. Let's say I want to open up Twitter. Well, I can just open up Twitter because there it is. And if it's on the other screen on my home screen, I can just swipe over to it. And if it's in my app drawer, I can just go into my app drawer. So the process of launching an app on the Fold it's one process where you select an app from your home screen or your app drawer, and then to bring in the second app, you're grabbing it off of your taskbar or off of the all apps list there in the taskbar. So it's 2 different things, 2 different ways to launch apps. It's a small thing, but it's a thing, right? On Surface Duo, there is but one process. It is always the same. It is always simply this, just launching an app. How do you launch the second app on Surface Duo? You just launch another app on the other screen. It's really, really simple. On the Fold, it is a little bit different, and it requires an extra little bit of thought, which you can get really used to. That's absolutely true, but it is an additional step to grab the app and drag it over. Now you can change the settings so that when you touch an app on the taskbar, it automatically split screens it. To me, the best functionality is to drag it over and then to touch the app to actually switch the app that's in the front. That makes more sense to me intuitively, but you'll find the best way to do it for yourself. But at the end of the day, I just find it to be infinitely simpler on Duo 2 to launch that second app. And what that actually leads to in real life, real world usage is that, again, I am always having two apps open on my Duo, and I am almost never on the Fold, only when I really need to. Whereas on here, it's just an open possibility. And you could say, well, why do you... And you could say, well, so you're saying you have two apps open here when you don't need them. You're doing it for no reason. That's not really true either. Having those two apps open, I wind up doing things. I wind up interacting between the two of them when I just wouldn't before. It gives me that open possibility, whereas it's not so much that on the Fold, I only do it when I need it. It's that I only do it when I really, really need it. Does that make more sense, I guess? And you may be thinking to yourself, Shane, you've done this before. You went from a Duo to a Fold. And didn't you already experience this? The answer is kind of, because while I did experience the things I'm talking about, the fact of the matter is, the original Duo was so much buggier. The touch response, the camera, all these things were such negatives that going to this had so many positives. Just the feel of using it was so buttery smooth. The camera was so usable. Everything else was so good that it covered up my lack of having dual screens. It covered up that fact. Now, though, going from Duo 2 in the state it's in to this, those things weren't true anymore. This or my Pixel, neither one of them felt noticeably smoother to me. The typing experience, the gestures, nothing felt noticeably different. So all I was left with was, boy, I wish I had two screens. So because of all this, I find myself in an interesting place. I do feel like it is somewhat my duty to purchase the Z Fold 4, although that is expensive. They're not going to send me one, all right? When I buy it, whatever it might wind up costing, that's going to come out of my pocket. And my pocket doesn't have a ton of money in it. I am a small YouTuber. So there's that. But then there's also the fact that I don't think it's going to be a radically improved experience over the Fold 2, which I just used for a couple of days and found myself repeatedly thinking, I want to put my SIM back in here. I want to use this thing instead. So I'm kind of in a weird spot where the coverage, the videos, the content kind of urge me to buy the Fold. Worst case scenario, wait until Pixel drops their foldable maybe. But I also have a hard time justifying it because I feel like I'm going to buy it, I'm going to use it for a little while, and I'm going to go back to my Duo 2. And that should really tell you a lot about how I feel about Duo 2 right now, because I don't think that the Fold is going to be able to pull me away from it full time. So there's a little insight into where my head is at right now, what it was like for someone like me to go to a Pixel 6a and then to go to a Fold, and then kind of how I'm thinking about the Fold 4, which again, that will be happening very, very soon. I will probably be live for that event as well. Be sure to join me on that one. Share your experiences down below. How many of you are Duo users that have used another phone, gone back and forth? What was your experience? How did it feel for you? Drop it in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.